To keep us on time. All right, good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. We have one commissioner absent this evening, Commissioner Disselis. First up, citizen communication. The Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comment on items relevant to the Planning and Zoning Commission not already scheduled on tonight's agenda. In accordance with the Texas Attorney General's opinion, any public comment that is made on an item that's not on the published agenda will only be heard by the Commission. No formal action, discussion, deliberation, or comment will be made by the Commission. Each person providing public comment will be limited to 3 minutes and will be asked to state his or her name and address for the public record. Is there anyone wishing to address the Commission this evening? And I do have several folks on specific agenda items, so we'll call you up during that public hearing. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? All right, seeing none, we will move on to item number 3, which is our consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the Commission and will be enacted by one motion. The items include preliminary and final plats where staff has found compliance with all minimum subdivision regulations. All items approved by consent are approved with any and all staff recommendations. There will not be separate discussion of these items. However, if any commissioner desires to discuss an item, we can pull it and place it on the regular agenda for further consideration. We have 3A, approving the amended 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting schedule, 3B, a preliminary plat for Weiss Kelly subdivision, and 3C, approving the P&Z Commission minutes for May 6, 2024. Are there any of those items that a commissioner would wish to remove from the consent agenda? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, next up on the agenda, we do have 3 public hearings this evening. The first one, item 4A, which is for a specific use permit for the proposed use of a lounge within the downtown district overlay, and Kristen is here to present.
Good evening, Chair and Commission. So tonight we have the applicant is requesting a specific use permit for a property located at 701 West Pecan for a lounge use. A lounge use offers patrons a relaxing environment where food, alcohol, and tobacco can be consumed. It is different from a restaurant or bar tavern, as no more than 50% of its total sales come from food or alcohol sales. Okay. The property is a unplatted piece of property that was included within the city when it incorporated in 1965. In 1984, the first zoning was applied to the property, and through zoning updates is General Business 1 today. It is also included in the Downtown District Overlay that was formed in 2004. Okay. In 2019, there was a lounge permitted by right at the property. In 2020, through updates to the Downtown District Overlay, land uses were amended. At that time, the lounge use was amended from permitted by right to conditional specific use, meaning that if the use can meet the conditions, then it is permitted by right. If it cannot, then a specific use permit is required. At that time, the use was permitted to continue as a legal nonconformity, provided it met state law and subchapter 8 of the Unified Development Code nonconformities. The property has subsequently been deemed abandoned, and the use must now conform to the current Unified Development Code and regulations for the Downtown District Overlay. The property is zoned General Business 1. The lounge use is permitted by right within the zoning district, except when the zoning district is in the Downtown District Overlay. The Downtown District Overlay is an overlay that provides additional land use and site design requirements. Per the conditions for this use in the Downtown District, from property to property line, the use must be located 200 feet away from a single-family detached townhome or duplex use, or otherwise permitted by a specific use permit. As you can see in the map, the use from property to property line is only 90 feet, and therefore the applicant is required to seek a specific use permit.
So if it wasn't for that, would it be permitted by right?
Correct. Okay. So this is, on the screen are the criteria to approve an SUP. The staff has found that the use is harmonious and compatible with the surrounding land uses, as it directly abuts other land uses that are considered commercial and is included within the downtown subcore district of the downtown overlay, which has many other commercial uses. The activities requested by the applicant are in line and are normally associated with the request for a lounge. The nature of the use is reasonable. The property is zoned commercially, and if not, in the downtown district overlay would be permitted by right. The applicant will be required to address all site designs and meet all other code of ordinances codes for the property upon approval of the SUP before they can open the before they can open the business. So staff has found that the lounge meets these criteria and is recommending approval with conditions. The lounge use is limited to the interior of the 3,200 square foot existing structure on site. The applicant is here to answer questions tonight, as well as staff is available to answer questions.
All right, thank you. Yeah, did the applicant wish to, did I hear they had something to share or no?
They're here to answer your
questions.
questions, but they
Gotcha.
do not have a presentation.
Gotcha, okay. All right, well, before we get into that, let's go ahead and take advantage of the fact that we've got the public hearing open to address some folks who have signed up. First of all, and these will be roughly in the order y'all turned them in. First of all, we have Chris Gary. And forgive me if I get any of your names incorrect. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Chris Gary. I am the pastor of administration and children at First Baptist Church, Pflugerville, who is the next door neighbor to this property. Our church has been in the community for 52 years. Excited about what's happening downtown, the new growth, the new opportunities that are taking place. Also being a part of the western gateway to the new downtown. We're excited to be that piece of property that's right there on that corner of 10th and Pecan. Looking forward to seeing what is going to happen with the city. We're really excited about that. We're also concerned about the property at 107 West Pecan. Our congregation of over 1,000 members are concerned about this special use permit to serve alcohol right next door to us, right across the street from Pflugerville ISD's Pace campus, and our family neighborhood right behind that backs right up to that property. Not just for the cigar shop who wants to move in there, but for any business that would move into that location, we would have the same concerns. We understand that the cigar shop has to move because the city has purchased the property that it currently leases, and so it has to find a new place to live. And so my understanding is they've looked around and this is the place that they've landed on. We are curious why the city has not adopted the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission's 300-foot buffer zone between an establishment like that wants to sell alcohol and a school or a church or a daycare. That has not been addressed, and we would like to see City Council at least consider adopting that recommendation. We're an active church. We're 6 days a week, sometimes 7, depending on the season. We have lots of children's events, lots of single events, lots of women and senior adult events that happen during the day and in the evening. We feel there will be a conflict of the use of our property, that we sometimes play in that yard right up to the property line, and just not sure about people driving under the influence, people coming out under the influence, all the things that we know from the news and stories that we hear when you mix alcohol and people. We're just concerned about those. Has that really been taken into consideration with the area noticed on one of the slides being compatible with the surrounding areas? Church, school, not sure a drinking establishment really meets that criteria of being compatible with that situation. We have lots of evening events, like I said. And I know the establishment, we've heard that the establishment is more of an evening type thing, so it really wouldn't affect the school or the church, but that's not a true statement. There are things that happen at the school and the church in the evening. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right. Next, we had Rhonda Flug.
Okay. In 1975, Tim started our business here at 601 West Pecan. In 1995, we built our home, what is now called the Old Town neighborhood. At that time, along Pecan Street was our business, Green and Growing, the bank, and small businesses, maybe Marshall's, and one other bar. We now have the Three-Legged Goat, the Whiskey Room, the Red Rooster, the Proust Ale House, the Victory Tap, Hanover's, 6 existing bars, plus with the cigar bar, that would make 7 in a 7-block area. Are there not some other businesses that we could bring to Pflugerville? I don't mind bars, but I don't want to live next to one. A few years ago, I believe in 2019, the Lounge, which was also kind of a bar, on the property at 701 Pecan Street next to our property. It did not stay open long, thankfully. We had some bad experiences with it, which I believe is normal for bars located close to homes. Music played late into the night, a constant thump of bass penetrating our bedroom wall. Trying to sleep was impossible, even with earplugs, a fan, and using masking noise. Nothing would drown out thumping bass. We had people late in the night go to their cars, compare stereos by playing them very loud. Even some days, the noise was so loud it was unpleasant to be in our backyard. We even had customers leave our store because it was so unpleasant to shop because of the noise. That is not the only bad experience we had with bars in the neighborhood. Twice we had someone drunk run through our gate and our fence. One of our neighbors had a drunk person who had a local bar receipt on them trying to break into their home. People in the neighborhoods have complained about noise, trash, and drunk people acting badly. So why would we want any more of this? We recently closed our business to retire. We have found out how much our business meant to our customers. So many of our customers told us how they thought of our place as a sanctuary where they could just walk around, enjoy the peace while shopping. We are happy that we had someone agree to lease the property and maintain it as a garden center and sanctuary as it always been. We could have sold the land and moved, but we wanted to stay in our neighborhood and in our town. The people who have bought homes in Old Town or any neighborhood should be able to be in their yard without annoying loud cars or music, should be able to go to bed and have it quiet enough so they can sleep, should not have to pick up trash from their yards, and feel safe. When people moved into Old Town, I think they wanted a nice, quiet neighborhood. I don't believe they were expecting to be located next to a bar district. And why are we okay with putting so many bars next to homes on our main street of Old Town? I know owners of the land of 701 Pecan Street do not live in Pflugerville, and I doubt they live near a bar. Would you on the zoning committee want to live next to a bar? I would like a more neighborhood feeling to our town, having a main street fronted with bars. Is that what we mean with the slogan, where quality meets life? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we had Richard Halpin.
Hello, Chair and Commissioners. First of all, I want to thank you for being here. I mean, I bet people call you every day and say, thanks so much for working for us for free. So I just want to add my voice to the many who quietly appreciate your service to our community. Thank you so much for the time and effort and all the reading you must do to spend time on this commission. My partner Becky and I live in Old Town, and we are neighbors with the folks who've spoken here so far. I was so pleased to see that compatibility and harmonious were part of the special use permit requirements, because a lounge across the street from a school and next door to a church and into a quiet neighborhood with children and seniors is not going to be harmonious or compatible. So the first criteria, I think, can't be met by this bar. Now, I'm not sure that the bar who's going to open here, the lounge, are the same owners as the folks down the street at the whiskey room, but or the cigar bar. But as you all probably know, there were a lot of problems down the street with drunken patrons ending up in people's yards, children not being able to go to bed and go to sleep at night, and other people who need care were not able to get to sleep. And we just don't want to see that happen again. So we're counting on you. We're counting on your leadership and your wisdom and your obvious generous and gracious natures to give all your time to our community to see that this is not the best place for this establishment to go. Furthermore, as the pastor said, this is the gateway to downtown. And they drive by the school district, and they drive by the church, and they drive by the PACE program, and then they hit a bar right where the streets come together into two lanes instead of four. Can you imagine inebriated people trying to get out of that driveway when they can't quite see the traffic coming over the hill toward them, and it's one lane, it's convergent? It's not really going to be safe for folks. So we would urge you to recognize that the young people who go to school across the street have already had more trauma in their lives than they deserve. And a lot of that trauma comes from alcohol, as you all know. So it's not a good place to put an alcohol-serving establishment across the street from a school for learning different children. We urge you, we ask you, and we lean on your leadership and wisdom. And we ask you prayerfully not to allow this use in that address. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, Becky Halpin.
Good evening, Commissioners. I too thank you, followed by my wish to make a formal complaint that this meeting was not noticed in compliance with the Pflugerville City Code. For mailed notices to property owners who should be noticed, like ourselves, the code requires that before the 10th day before the Planning and Zoning meeting, a notice of public hearing shall be sent to those property owners by U.S. mail deposited in the municipality, and that would be put in a mailbox in Pflugerville. This is effectively 11 days before the meeting date. We received our notice on Friday, April the 4th, as all of our neighbors did who received them. One of our neighbors who should have been noticed never received a notice. I cannot imagine that a letter mailed to Pflugerville 11 days before April the 7th, the day of the meeting, which would have been March the 28th, would take 8 days to reach my house. That would be March the 28th, the 29th, the 30th, the 31st, April the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and finally to my house on the 4th, 8 days later. It appears to me that we were not noticed in a timely manner, and I request that this hearing be rescheduled so that appropriate property owners can be properly and legally notified. If this action is not taken, I will, of course, take it up with the City Council. Regarding the merits of the rezoning, most cities like us, such as Hutto, Taylor, Georgetown, and Austin, all limit the distance a bar or lounge can be to school property to 300 feet or greater. This is because they understand alcohol-fueled behavior has no place near a school campus. The state of Texas also acknowledges the potential for inappropriate alcohol-inspired behaviors and activities near bars and lounges in the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Code. This code allows cities to adopt the 300-foot distance that our neighboring cities have all adopted. If this distance had been adopted in our code, this would not be allowed at this location. Other cities and the state of Texas can all see that lounges within 300 feet of schools is a bad idea. So why are we promoting this, since there is a Pflugerville ISD campus within 300 feet? The same business seeking the special use permit caused much neighborhood disruption in its previous location on Pecan, with neighbors complaining of overly loud music and patrons who left empty alcohol containers, trash strewn in yards. In addition to patrons urinating in yards, what makes you believe this business will be a good neighbor to a school? I ask that you deny the special use permit for this location. It is not fitting. It is not harmonious. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Mary Keep.
Good evening. My name is Mary Heap, and I live in Old Town, specifically on Pfluger Street, which is right behind this proposed location. At the February 25th City Council meeting, I addressed the council with my concerns that the city of Pflugerville had not adopted the TABC code. This was confirmed by city staff and a city council member. Our surrounding cities of Hutto, Round Rock, and Georgetown all abide by the TABC code. I appeal to the city of Pflugerville to adopt a local ordinance that will abide by the TABC code relating to alcohol sales. The TABC measurement instructions would not allow for this proposed cigar lounge requesting to serve alcohol to be located directly across the street from the PFISD campus of Pace High School and next to the First Baptist Church. The proposed lounge at 701 East Pecan is located on a lot that adjoins another lot with no barrier from Pecan to Pfluger Street, which is the residential area of Old Town. I'm a resident of Old Town and have great concern on many levels about this type of business at that location. I find it hard to imagine the city of Pflugerville allowing this business at the gateway to downtown as well. As a concerned citizen, I appeal to you members of the Planning and Zoning Committee to deny the specific use permit requested by the East Pecan Cigars 2025. I cannot understand why no measures have been taken by the city government to put into ordinance the TABC guidelines. We would not be here if they had. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, Verna Jean Mott.
Good evening. I am here because for the district, we did not receive any official information regarding this 701 West Pecan Street at this time. So I came to get information and to listen and to see what was going on. I know that the safety and well-being of our PACE students and staff is a high priority, and PACE is a high school with at-risk students. So in the staff presentation, there were, I saw the word harmonious, and that is a very strong word and a very interesting word. The other thing I did not see was what the hours of operation will be, and if we know that, I would be interested in that information. And I'll continue to listen this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Emily Cano.
Hi, my name is Emily Cano. I'm a resident here in Pflugerville along with my family. I live on 7th Street and it is within 500 feet of the proposed lounge location. I'm also an interior designer at an architecture firm in Austin, and I've worked on countless projects in Austin as well as nationally. And some of the goals that I have on the projects I work on is to make sure that it's thoughtfully designed and that it contributes positively to the environment around it. And I don't think that the proposed location is meeting either of these goals for a couple of reasons. I think the big one to me is really the fact that the past cigar bar lounge had a track record of loud noises late at night. Sometimes explicit lyrics would be heard. Neighbors, patrons would park in the neighborhood. There would be trash and potential urination was happening in people's yards. And, I think overall that is obviously problematic. The other one, which other people have already spoke about, is, as we all know, Pflugerville has yet to adopt any sort of code language based on the TACB, that talks about the 300 feet from a school or a church. I highly recommend this, not just for the instance at hand, but just for future planning. I'm here for the growth of Pflugerville. You know, we just bought our house 3 years ago. I love Pflugerville. I want to stay here for a long time. I love that we're growing. I love where it's going, but I want it to be thoughtful. I want it to contribute positively. I am here for bars. I like to drink, but do I think it needs to be in the location that it is proposed? No. And the last point for me is really probably more personal. I have 2 young children. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and you know, when we stand in the front yard, we can see the proposed location from our yard. Her bedroom is on that side of the house, and do I want my 3-year-old daughter waking up late at night from loud music or hearing explicit lyrics or having people potentially park in our neighborhood and having issues of, you know, drunk driving? No, I'm not interested in having any of that. Someone also made a point about the fact that there is no barrier. It truly is just a yard. You can see the entire building. And maybe they're going to build a barrier or whatnot. I have no idea. But there's going to be no noise mitigation because there's absolutely no barrier. So we're going to get all of that into our location. You know, some of the reasons that we bought where we did was the fact that it was an already established neighborhood, that it had a lot of established things around it, that it was quiet, that it offered all of these amenities that we couldn't find in other locations. I want it to go in a great direction, and I'm, you know, all for pro-business, but I just think that this is not the best location for this proposed type. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, I didn't have any other folks who had signed up to speak. Before we close the public hearing, I just wanted one last chance if there was anyone who didn't get their paper turned in. Okay, seeing as there are no further folks wishing to speak, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed.
I have some thoughts. Okay, so the TABC rule is moot because that rule applies to bars and restaurants. It does not apply to a cigar lounge. It applies to a cocktail lounge, but not a cigar lounge. If you can Google on TABC, which I did while we were receiving comment. Thank you all for coming out and expressing your concerns. I also live very near this proposed location. I walk past it all the time with my very rowdy dog. And I don't feel like the school argument or the church argument are really that compelling, both because this is going to have less than half of its sales are going to be alcohol, which is why even if Pflugerville passed the TABC rule, it would change nothing. This wouldn't be subject to that per the definitions in the TABC. Also, the PACE campus is across a 5-lane street with no light or crosswalk from that location, and I'm sure the owner can speak to whether or not he allows minors in his establishment. I sincerely doubt he does. And the church, number one, it's a big parking lot that backs up to the yard behind this location. It's not an area where I've ever seen children, with the exception of special events where you guys have like the bouncy houses and stuff. It looks really fun. But I've never seen anyone in this grassy area. I do see police presence during your Sunday services and some of your other events. So I feel like you guys have a really well regulated and controlled environment, including police guarding the crosswalks when you have heavy traffic there. Regarding the noise, I get it, but Pflugerville has a noise ordinance, and that's what it's for. If they are violating the noise ordinance, you call the police, you get the measurement, you have data. We went through this before. There was a lot of complaint, but there wasn't a lot of data. And so I don't know if the city has data handy, but the noise ordinance exists. They measure the decibels from the property line. So if that's an issue, that can be dealt with. Likewise, drunk driving and people littering, there are 3 or 4 bars in a row right there. And that is a problem that again, There are laws against drunk driving. I don't think the cigar shop is anywhere near as likely as the Whiskey Room and the Red Rooster to have people drunk driving. There's also a restaurant that sells alcohol right next to Pace, much closer, Fogonero. I hope nobody here is proposing to shut that place down because it's amazing. So the noise, yeah, call the police, get the decibel reading, collect the data. That's the way you address that. I love Pflugerville too. And one of the things I love about Pflugerville is that it's a really diverse community. And I love where I live because we have people from all races, ethnicities, and religions in my neighborhood living next to each other harmoniously. And one of the things I love about the Cigar Lounge is that it's drawing in people from the African American community to the Pflugerville area in Central Texas. And I love that safe space for the community. And I've been to the lounge a few times and I was welcomed with open arms and it was a wonderful experience.
Thank you. I did want to ask a question, Kristen, because one of the residents brought up our notification area and timing. If you could maybe speak to that, that'd be great.
Yes, so our GIS department generates a list based on the available tax rolls for the year, and then I am tasked with sending out those letters. Specifically, these letters were mailed March 28th, which is 10 days before the meeting.
Got it. Thank you.
I have a question for you. So about the TABC rules, it's come up before in the past few years here. Do you have any insight on how that process is done? My direct question, do we at the commission, this particular one, handle that vote or requirement or anything?
So currently, just to be clear, we don't have that in our ordinances today. It is up to each municipality to adopt or not adopt that per state regulation. It would depend on how that regulation, should council want to pursue that, it would come through. If it was a zoning regulation, yes, you would see that. However, I would point out today, it's not in the ordinances today. This case is about a specific use permit for a lounge. And just to be clear, a lounge is less than 50% of alcohol sales. TABC would regulate that just like it would a restaurant for alcohol sales within so many feet, if that were to be adopted. So, and just to...
Thank you. I'm sorry. I stand corrected.
It's okay. Just to make sure we're all on the same page. If that were to be adopted per TABC, it's 300 feet from a church, door to door, measured differently for spacing to a school, where you're looking more closely at property lines. However, that's just to be noted that because it has come up tonight, that has not been adopted by the city council at this point. Did you have a question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we don't have it, so it's moot right now.
That's right.
Were we to adopt it, I can't imagine that it's within 300 feet of Pace, given how far back that lounge is and the 5-lane it is.
So when you look at a school property, you're looking at property line to property line.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
Versus a church, which would be even though it shares a property line with a church, the door to door is more than 300 feet from the church.
Okay.
So it's as the crow flies for that. So you do have that. But again, that's not a regulation in the code today, right? And so we're looking at a specific use permit and the appropriateness of a lounge, which, as Kristen stated earlier, is for primarily cigar sales, right? Which was there before, and it was the downtown district overlay that changed that regulation to have it come before you through a specific use permit. And so that's really what we're looking at. They can also sell alcohol, they can sell food, but less than 50% of their sales have to come from that. The primary use of a lounge is for the sale of tobacco products.
And so there was a lounge there for how long?
Do you remember?
The hookah place, I remember seeing it.
The city does not know. Less than a year?
Less than a year, yeah.
Thank you. So a couple questions too on some of the citizens raised issues about sounds and perimeter fencing. Do we at this commission, or does the city through its development process get to stipulate regulations on sound ordinances or reduce sound or building perimeter fences or things like that?
And any fencing will be looked at through the site development permit process, and then the noise ordinance, like on any other property, is reviewed and approved by the city council and then enforced by our police department.
Okay, so here, for my clarification, in this setting, we don't set those limitations or boundaries?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is specifically for the use permit, which would be separate from any other development or building construction work, right? In which case, the latest code would apply. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd like to say too that we heard a lot about the potential owners of the site and how there was some complaints about noise and maybe where they were previously. I guess what I didn't hear was any particular opposition to the previous use as a lounge. And that business didn't seem to be particularly a problem for the community. And
That's not true. I called the police twice.
not the cigar lounge, the one that was at this location. Fair enough. Thank you. And so, for me, I think it's been signed as a lounge. I think the signage is even still in the building. And so it doesn't feel as much to me like this is a new thing. This is changing the use too much of the area, just based on the downtown overlay, causing the differences with the property boundary distances seems to be the thing that's kind of triggering this. But I don't see this as a big difference between the way it has been used, the way that building has been, used for at least the past 5 to 10 years, maybe. And so I don't believe that's necessarily something that is, particularly changing very much at this point.
Sure.
Yeah,
I agree, Nick.
Well, I think
The condition that, sorry, real quick. Yeah, sorry, we need to be able to get through the discussion up here. Appreciate your all's input certainly, but want to make sure that we cover everything we can.
Well, I think the challenge that we face with a change like this, I mean, I don't know if this, I genuinely don't know if the building's been occupied in the 8 or 9 years that I've lived here, 12 years kind of in the central area. And I do know that, derelict buildings are not nearly as helpful to the city, the community, tax rolls, et cetera, than operating businesses. And so I think that it's nice to see development come to that site. That particular one, I've looked at many, many, many times thinking about, I wonder, I've had visions. What could that be? What could that do?
Same.
Is that something that would be a benefit to the community and a gathering place and things? And so I think that based on the staff's recommendation for approval and the fact that it conforms with all of our current guidelines and rules, it makes total sense.
Yeah, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kristen, I think the condition that staff is recommending here as well in terms of restricting use to the interior of the building, I believe is intended to help solve for potential noise issues as well, right? I know we have had other locations with indoor-outdoor spaces where no doubt it could be an issue, but I think this is probably a reasonable restriction. Is that did I characterize
Yes,
that? Or that was the spirit of?
The condition is intended to help meet the compatibility.
That should help
Have
tremendously.
you already seen site development plans or anything? Have you already kind of preliminaried that or anything?
No, staff has not seen any other plans outside of this SUP for this property at this time.
Okay, and if will we ever see this again in terms of site planning or is this today's it?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we ask if that will ever change the interior only? Will there be a possibility to have a?
Should the applicant want to expand this use on property, they would have to go back through this process
Yeah.
again to make the use bigger if they expand the building, or to have more, or to even have outdoor space. They would have to go through this process again.
I think
I was going to say, if anything related to the TABC regulations was put in place in between those, then they would potentially be grandfathered in before that. But then if they wanted to change that in any way, it would kind of remove that kind of grandfathering, right?
That's a much more complicated
Yeah.
legal question related to vesting and
Right.
timing.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, I think the challenge that we have here is, in my experience serving on the commission, we try to allow business, right? We try to develop or create spaces for business to happen.
Yeah.
In my experience, we're not really in the, we really rely heavily on staff's recommendations because, they're the experts in the code and how things work, and they've worked with the owner or the applicants and things like that. And so I think that really takes care of a lot of my concerns.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I've been thinking about in the same vein is that we wouldn't be seeing this at all if there wasn't the downtown overlay that had been added, since this was the previous use of it. And specifically to the spirit of the downtown overlay, I tend to agree with you. I think we've seen other businesses like that, like this, within the overlay, and I think we probably will continue to see some of that. I also agree with you. I think equity in how we apply both recommendations and conditions, I think is crucial in the way we handle these cases. I did want to say, I know the applicant is here. I don't know if you'd like to come up and if anybody has any questions for them, if you're still interested in doing so.
The only question that I had was, does the applicant accepting the condition and comfortable with the condition to remain in the interior of the building?
Yes. Hello, Council. So I'm Andre Artis, Tashawn Robinson here. I would like to address a couple of things that were stated here. When we came in before, so I actually own the current one that's in place right now, which you visited a couple of times. But thank you very much. But the first thing I want to address here is that yes, it was a little bit uncomfortable for the residents to have the community be a little bit more full because that building was occupied with our lounge, the whiskey room, which doesn't have parking, Red Rooster, which doesn't have parking. So eventually the parking is going to flow into the neighborhood. After the police were engaged, we hadn't had one call. So the DBs are at 80. I purposely make sure we run it at 75 for the respect of the residents in the back. I don't think anyone who spoke here has even made an attempt to come in and see what we're about. We basically we're open arms. For those who have visited, they clearly know that that's what we do. That's what we're about. I mean, if you think about smoking cigars, it's almost like playing golf. It's an expensive sport. So you won't necessarily have just what some may assume as being the riffraff, if you will, that's going to be coming through because we don't allow that. But I'm glad that you mentioned that I'm glad that you mentioned that right next door because I made a stop purposely today. Right, like literally when you cross the grounds of the school, they serve alcohol at that fabulous restaurant which you mentioned, and if you walk 2 doors down to the Casita, I believe the name of that Mexican restaurant, they have a full bar there as well. So they're actually closer on the side of the street where the school is to consume liquor.
Much easier to get to those two places than yours. Also, you wouldn't notice a minor walking into a restaurant like you would a cigar lounge.
Exactly right, because you're going there to eat, and eating is eating is G-rated in this, right? So anyone
cigars are like PG-13.
Yeah, PG-13 for cigar. Well, you have to be PG
or PG-18, I guess.
PG-21. 21. PG-21 to be for cigars. But the reason why I think it's important that we actually get the opportunity to speak is that we understand that there's some challenges, right? But the growth is inevitable. So eventually, downtown Pflugerville is going to grow, right? And unfortunately, for some, they don't like it. But for the city, I think it's amazing, especially with the new projects that we have coming into the city. And I think this is just an addition to what's already coming into the city. As mentioned before, I complied 120% to what was issued here when we were here before. Again, running the DBs 5 under, so I can actually take it up to 80. But I purposely make sure that we run it at the property line at 5. Haven't had one complaint. We haven't had one fight. We haven't had any break-ins. We haven't had anyone being violated that the police had to come out for. So the concerns are there, but based on 3 years being in this location and not having that, I'm not sure exactly where a lot of this is festering from. Now, one can make assumptions, but we'll avoid making the assumptions. But the purpose of us being here and the purpose of us doing this is because we want to grow, right? We're growing. I saw something that was great. It's a small facility. They're saying the parking, we get 70 parking spots over here. So think how many, you get 70 cars off the street that you're complaining about being in the neighborhood now into a controlled parking lot. So so again, it's kind of like, let's work together. I'm willing to work with anyone. I'll give my phone number to whoever's willing to talk. I promise I won't call you unless I really need to. and I would hope you do the same because I got a lot of texts. But because we were under the rules, but they still wanted me to do something differently. But I'm like, hey, I'm doing my part and then some. So there's a young lady in the back who she freely texts me and say, hey, can you turn it down a little bit? I know you're not where you need to be. I mean, because you can take it up louder, but and I comply easily. I'm like, sure, I'll take it down. It's just that simple. I don't understand, but I get it. I've been in Pflugerville since '98, so I live right up the street in Swenson Farm. So I am a resident in Pflugerville. And Deshaun I think he lived closer to downtown.
Glebe Wells Point.
And Larry's the other owner. He lives in Blackhawk. So we're residents of Pflugerville. We just bringing something unique and different to the city. I think it's complimentary. It's nothing like it. In fact, this particular one will be probably the only one like it in Austin. So Travis County, which is even that much better, which means we'll bring even more people to the community. And I know it may not sound well to a lot of people because it's going to drive traffic, but that's what we want in growing a downtown area.
Sounds like tax revenue to me.
So we're here to answer any questions that you guys may have for us. We spent a lot of time on thinking about this. We spent a lot of time on the facility. We have a lot of work to do. We spent a lot of money on making sure this thing's been vacant for 5+ years. So there's a lot of work that has to be done, and we're going to do our part to make sure that we meet all the compliances that are necessary in order for us to run this effectively and develop a profitable business. That's our objective.
Yeah.
What's the occupancy for a 3,200 square foot structure?
That would have to be taken up by.
Our building official can answer that question for you. It's based on the use and the size of the building.
I also wanted to say, I really appreciated the letter of intent that was provided by y'all. Thought it was very professional. And I think it's important that we invest in local businesses and entrepreneurs in Pflugerville, encouraging more and more local businesses. So.
And we support every business that's down there. I mean, we purposely eat and fund the businesses because we understand the challenges of being, an entrepreneur and making sure that we buy local. So, and I welcome anyone. Like, even if you don't like us, please come, just give us a shot. Come through. We may have a jazz night if you like jazz. We'll jazz it up for you a little bit and come do your thing.
But just to add up, Larry Foote as well, as Audrey mentioned, we know this is one of the oldest, probably the oldest building entering Pflugerville downtown. We have a side that you can see as soon as you drive in. There's thoughts in our mind to what we can do to glorify that, to make that even more of an experience as you drive in. So we're taking everything in consideration in regards to, what it's going to look like from an outside cosmetic view, to make us all feel proud. I've lived in Pflugerville since '97 myself. And so I've been here. My kids went to high school here, graduated and moved on. Worked in this area since I moved here. So I care. We all care. Just to make sure we all understand where our mind frame is at is creating an experience for those who come, but those who live here as well, to be able to have a place to come and enjoy, sit back, watch a game, smoke a cigar, go home.
Listen to some good music too.
Sure. Yep.
Not loud, not above the dBs.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming and sharing that as well. And we're happy to take a couple more comments and questions, but I did want to again thank you all for being so open with the community. I know a couple of years ago we had a similar situation, right? And I am thankful that you all have found some solutions with the neighborhood, and I'm hopeful that will continue with your new location.
We will only enhance it. That's our goal. So when I approached these two gentlemen here for the next location, I talked about some of the challenges that we've had in getting it started, some of the rules that have been applied, and they won't go away. Right. So again, I know someone said they called twice, and someone said we haven't had one police officer show up for any noise ordinance or anything since, and that's been probably a couple of years now. So. Not sure.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. It sounded like most of the comments that we received were related to the serving of alcohol.
Yeah.
Do you guys hold any kind of license or a permit to serve alcohol, or how
we have to apply for the licenses. So once this is approved, then we have the green light, right?
Yeah. We're working through all those steps in regards to the comptroller's office. We put an ad in the paper in regards to Austin Chronicle. We've done all of our due diligence. We posted a sign. The sign has been out since December. on the front window that needs to be out for 60 days. We left it there. You know, we could have been taking that sign down. We left it there. We have nothing to hide. It's something that we want to glorify and bring to this area in a positive way. Our final step is working with the city regards to getting their approval that we can be able to submit for our TABC license. We have yet to receive that license as we're still going through the process.
Do you have a license for the current facility?
It's BYOB, and that's when we
Oh,
want to
okay.
change that because now we have the opportunity to control the consumption.
Right.
Right, so we're now going into a facility where the consumption is controlled. Although we haven't had any accidents or anything, or any drunk driving or tickets or anything like that from leaving the facility, we still find it, one, you can monetize on it, right? And then two, you have the ability to control consumption.
Yeah, and with that kind of license, I assume there's some kind of requirements and regulations
Oh,
that if there's any sort of incident
multi-million-dollar
or any
insurance
kind
policies and
of
things like that.
alcohol-related, issues on the site that you would potentially lose the license or other
Exactly.
effects.
There is even part of that process is background checks on not only us but our spouses as well, to ensure that they have no history regards to ages of your kids in the house. So it's a very thorough process to get your TABC license.
Jonathan, I'm ready to make a motion.
Yep, I'll entertain.
Yeah, just quick, what's the age requirement to get into the building? Would it be 21?
It's 21, yes,
Okay.
because you have, tobacco sales, it may be lower, but
Oh,
we have
that's
21.
right. Tobacco's 21 now. I'm so
Yes,
old.
21.
Yes.
Back then, we could buy a pack of Marlboros at 18.
I forgot. I'm ready to move. I move to approve as with staff recommendations.
Seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Forgetting that you have tobacco at 18 anyway.
All right, next up, we have item 4B on a rezone application. Oh,
Did I do something wrong?
there we go.
There's no, is there a clicker? Oh, yeah. Good evening, Chair, Commission, and community. My name is Dr. Yasmin Turk, and I'm the Planning Manager for the City of Pflugerville. This is the rezoning case of 3315 East Pecan Street. As shown in this map, this property is located east of Highway 130 near the Lavano development and bordering the Encore substation. This is a 5.927 acre site. The request is for rezoning from Urban Center Level 5, which is CL5, to Campus Industrial, to be in line with the property that's to the east. Campus Industrial is intended to include land which is used or intended to be used as an employment center, including but not limited to land uses such as light industrial, research and development centers, multi-story offices, business services, and limited retail services. This zoning is in line with the Aspire Pflugerville 2040 Comprehensive Plan and located in the Lakeside Neighborhood District. Staff recommends approval of rezoning this subject property from Urban Center Level 5 to Campus Industrial. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
All right, did we have anyone in the public wishing to speak this evening? This is a public hearing. I did not receive any cards. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. All right, motion passes. The public hearing is closed. Questions? Discussion?
Nope.
Was there anything, did the applicant have anything that they wanted to share, or not necessarily?
No.
Okay. There's,
I make a motion to approve.
Second. Second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, item 4C, which is another rezone application, and Yasmin, you're up again, right?
All right. The subject property is shown in this image. The villages of Hidden Lake to the west, and a storage facility is on the property next to, adjacent. Reserve at West Creek is the development shown in the top corner. This is the Weiss Retail Center. It is a 2.509 acre site currently used as a fuel station and general retail. GB2 is primarily for heavy uses, where GB1 offers a lighter neighborhood uses. It is currently GB2. We would like to have the rezoning cases to move it to GB1. It is in line with the Aspire Pflugerville 2040 comprehensive plan. And it's in the Blackland Prairie Neighborhood District. Staff recommends approval of rezoning from General Business 2 to General Business 1.
Is this something that the city is pursuing, or was there an? I'm sorry, this was we did have an applicant for this.
Yes,
Okay.
this was an applicant. I'm not sure if the
Gotcha.
applicant is here. Yes, the applicant is here. If there are any
gotcha, okay.
questions.
Questions, discussion?
Yeah, so I guess my question is, if the site is just the fuel station, what's the difference between going from GB 2 to 1? Like, what's driving that?
GB1 allows for more retail, neighborhood use type activities. And I don't know if you'd like to present anything else about your reasoning for your application.
I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing then.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. Any other discussion on this item? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. One more. All right, we have a replat, item 4D for the Village at Wells Branch, and Yasmin is up again.
All right. So this is the replat of Lot 3B at the Village at Wells Branch, Section 2, Commercial Plat. As you can see in this image, there is the lot which contains 3B and 3E. Lot 3B is 1.07 acres, and staff recommends approval for the replat into making this one lot into two lots.
All right, is there anyone in the public wishing to speak on this item? I did not receive any speaking cards. All right, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, public hearing is now closed. Any other conversation or questions on this item?
No?
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, last up on the agenda this evening, item 6A, which is discussion only, and this is regarding the next update to the 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2026 through 2030.
All right. Good evening. There was another presentation.
It might have been posted as a PNC agenda.
While they're working on the tech, I did want to make sure that the commissioners understood. So there's obviously a lot of content and thought that goes into this plan every year. This is the next update for next year. And I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to read through all hundreds of pages of the plan. So by all means, ask questions, take notes this evening, but feel free to reach out to staff, and specifically Emily will take inputs and questions and take care of those things. The current plan is for this to come back to us for our approval next month.
So I can email comments to city staff between now and then.
I will be sooner rather than later, so that they can.
I will be a
integrate any feedback.
passenger to and from Brownsville this week, and so I know what I'll be reading in the car.
If we send questions or comments, is it allowable to? I guess we only have y'all's contact. It would just be nice to see what other people's comments and questions could be, but I'm guessing that the preference is that we actually email city staff directly instead of including additional commissioners on communication?
Correct. Due to open meetings requirements, you can communicate with city staff. You can send those to me. We'll coordinate with Abby and the CIP team, and then we can provide a summary at the May meeting of the comments and questions that we received.
Okay, great. That'd be helpful.
All right.
All right. Good evening, Abby Morrison, Public Works Services Director, and tonight we are here to talk about the 5-year CIP for fiscal years 26 through 30. This presentation will cover the definition and purpose of the CIP and how it aligns with the city's Aspire 2040 comp plan and the foundational basis used in developing the projects. We'll also walk through the major program areas and the projected schedule for implementation on these projects. The CIP is a strategic planning tool used to guide the city's investments in infrastructure such as transportation, utilities, parks, and public facilities. It is designed to prioritize projects that support growth, maintain existing assets, and enhance quality of life with community values and long-range planning goals. It's important to note that while all the projects included in the CIP are identified as potential needs, this does not guarantee they will move forward. Project advancement depends on several factors, including available funding, community demand, project readiness, and coordination with external partners. While we aim to maintain a steady and balanced capital program, circumstances often change, costs can increase as projects move through design, timelines may shift as we approach construction, and funding mechanisms play a key role in project delivery. Additionally, the CIP may look a little bit different this year. Several major master planning efforts are currently underway, including those for transportation, water, wastewater, parks, and facilities. These plans will help shape the future priorities and may result in updates in current and future projects. To support the implementation of some of the projects shown in the fiscal year 2026 CIP, staff anticipates bringing forward a 2026 bond program for consideration. This would serve as a critical funding tool to help advance key infrastructure investments. We are not requesting any formal action today. This presentation is intended for feedback and discussion. Staff will return at the next meeting with a formal request for approval. So with that, let's dive into the details of fiscal year 26 CIP and what lies ahead, and I'll introduce Cindy Bro, our Capital Improvement Program Manager.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to go over a few things about the CIP plan. There is a lot of work that goes into preparing this for you, that 162-page document that you have before you. It's a light reading. But this plan fits along with and aligns with Aspire 2040. And with that, those projects that are included in there are diverse and equitable, and we are making them fiscally responsible, environmentally sustainable, community-oriented, and safe and healthy, and economic opportunities are for everyone. It's like citywide, so no one's left out. The 5-year CIP alignment with Aspire, we're focusing a little bit on the transportation mobility, infrastructure and community facilities and public services through FY26 CIP projects that we're going to be starting. That includes the transportation trails and sidewalks, water, wastewater, and reclaimed water projects, and city building facilities and parks. The capital improvement implementation is meeting a high-quality, safe, and efficient public infrastructure. We identify and plan the citywide capital needs over a 5-year period. This is 26 through 30. We ensure the design of those projects meets intended uses, operation and maintenance costs are included, and everything's complying with the regulatory requirements. We manage the construction for the projects on budget, on schedule, for an on-time delivery. When choosing the projects, this is coming from several places. The comprehensive plan, the master plans that we talked about we're adopted every 3 to 5 years, and we try to fit those projects in with what's recommended through those plans. Infrastructure condition reports, facilities reports, all sorts of things like that. Citizens' requests for services within the city. We try to take into consideration all of those items, and also the growth and development of the city. Each project has a one-page document there for you to look at that has the project scope, its justification on it, the cost as of right now, what we think it's going to be in today's dollars. The funding is included with it, and the schedule of when we think these things are estimated to come into play. So land and use is usually first when we're buying and setting up those pieces that we need and places to have the costs and everything pulled together for them. The funding sources, there's a page in your book near the front of in the narrative that tells you all the different kinds of funding sources that we have available. These are just a few. There are certificates of obligations, general obligation bonds, federal grants, WIFIA through the EPA, the TERS, Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, impact fees, the CAMPO, Capital Area Metro Planning Organization, utility funds, and the Texas Water Development Board fund a lot of these items for us. You'll see the future funding in there that's going to be determined as we go, or a bond will be set up for that. I'm going to turn this over now to Evan Rochelle, Operations Director, so he can talk about this transportation that we have for next year.
Sorry. Hello again. Evan, Operations Director for Public Works, overseeing traffic transportation and other things. Transportation, CIP, roadways, traffic signals, intersections, as we discussed earlier. We have about 45 transportation projects, so it's a big lift, but everything's moving according to as it should be. This is just kind of a list showing you all the projects and the cost over the next 5 years. This is continuing that. And we're going to focus, the highlighted projects are ones we're going to focus on a little bit, going a little bit deeper. Program funding sources, it just kind of shows you where the funding for the projects is coming from. So the projects we're going to discuss, and I clicked through the slides faster than I did my notes. Intersection control on Olympic Drive and that surrounding area. So we're looking at we want to do a traffic signal warrant analysis, just kind of look at that whole area, see where we can make improvements. This goes back to the safety pillar, looking at what we can do traffic signal wise. You have to do all the analysis to make sure it makes sense. So that's what we're gonna do. The FM 685 at Steeds Crossing, that project is 685 northbound at Steeds Crossing, have an acceleration and a deceleration, then acceleration lane. For the neighborhood, and we meet with the HOAs as often as we can. I know with this particular neighborhood, we meet with them once a year, it seems, and so this is something that we've been discussing with them. We understand it's a need. It's a partnership project, so we'll have to coordinate with TxDOT. County Road 138 at Derby Day. So we discussed this one earlier. This is the Wilco Highway project and installing the traffic light on Derby Day. Current status is they're at 90% complete design for the project. Staff's reviewing that. We're working on the interlocal agreement with them so we can move this forward. There's some utility coordination that needs to take place for city utility, but that is in play and something we're consistently discussing with them. FM 685, County Road 138 intersection improvements. Again, this is another project, joint project that is in the early stages yet still moving. And then the downtown mobility improvements. So this is a big one to talk about. We talked about the 685 project earlier at 6 o'clock and how important it is to make sure that we do this responsibly. We don't want to congest the area without giving our residents and other people that pass through our city the option to have different mobility. So when we look at this on the far right, you'll have downtown east. In that area, we're looking at doing what's called an intersection control evaluation as a part of the 685 project. So we're looking at putting in a roundabout potentially just north of the downtown area, so we have continuous flow. So the thing we need to focus about when we want to make sure that we're providing efficient mobility is efficient flow or continuous flow intersection. That means that you have less congestion. It's also a safety thing, so it makes people slow down, but it keeps traffic moving. So other areas we're looking at, the roadway that's going to be going through downtown east that's called Main and will come out on Railroad. We want to look at that intersection control evaluation for roundabout there, as well as Pecan and Railroad. So looking at these different options, because as we know, when we bring 685 on and we have downtown east complete, we can imagine that there's going to be a lot of traffic. So we got to think through that and efficiently design, smartly design and engineer and build. This map just shows the project points, just kind of giving you a different illustrative view. All the projects as it relates to in context with the city. Key drainage projects. So key drainage projects include emphasis on reducing the floodplain impact and creating detention and channel improvements. So drainage improvements and roadways goes hand in hand. You get best bang for your buck when you do drainage projects with roads, obviously. So that's something we look at. We have 12 drainage projects, and they're not currently funded, but they're pending possible grant and future utility drainage fee or general obligation bond. We'll kind of get into that a little bit more.
Could I ask a couple quick questions on the drainage? I noticed that I didn't see a whole lot on the list, and I could have just missed it, as a lot of content to try to digest. But I didn't see a whole lot of bringing residential out of floodplains. Are we to the point now where we feel pretty good across the city in terms of the number of our residents that are in areas that would be impacted? I mean, obviously these flood maps don't work in our advantage, right? They're getting worse.
So some of the projects that we're proposing doing, the priority is to bring them out of the floodplain.
Okay.
So when we're going to talk about the Emmanuel Road, Pecan Park, Upper Gilliland Creek channel improvements. If I remember right, a lot of residential would be affected. So that's one of the key projects that we're going to be talking about that would bring them out.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be great. Maybe that's something in the next version of this you all can call out specifically which ones are. Obviously, it all benefits the whole city, but I think it's really important that we recognize how many folks are in these floodplains that need that support.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
So focusing on a couple of these, so we're going to use grant money as much as we can. So with a lot of these, such as I did write them down, and I have to read my handwriting. Caldwell, Weiss Lane, Railroad Avenue, Hidden Lake Drive, all those we've already applied for a PER grant or a preliminary engineering report grant that we should be hearing back soon about. And once we hear back from that, early 2026, we'll be able to submit a full application for grant for those. And then the Emmanuel Road Pecan project, or Pecan Park at Upper Gilliland project, and that's the one that I was discussing affecting the residents. We've applied for a grant, or we're going to apply for a grant through Texas Water Development Board, the Flood Infrastructure Fund, and the second quarter of this year we should hear back about that. But that assumes that 80% of the design and construction will be paid for by the grant. So we're aware of the priorities of the projects, and that's why we're going to try to get funding sooner rather than later for these priority projects. And this just kind of illustrates those specific projects in the downtown district storm drain improvement. Again, just kind of the maps as it relates to the context of the city.
Sorry, quick question. This is a specific project. So for the it's actually not on here. I made it up that it was on the slide. For the downtown detention pond, which I know is an important piece as we continue to develop and build out downtown east as well as the rest of our core. Does that need to actually coincide with the opening of downtown east, or are those are executed on separately?
It's separate.
Okay.
Downtown
Great.
East has its own drainage study
Gotcha.
to
Okay.
accommodate for that additional impervious cover there.
Okay, thank you.
Facility CIP, so we evaluate plan for future, including resiliency measures. We're doing a citywide facility master plan currently, and that can consist of 3 different tasks. One is meeting with department directors and getting feedback, kind of canvassing the city, understanding what the needs actually are. Phase 2 of that, sorry, check my notes. Will be the actual space programming based from the information they received, our consultant received. And then the third will be conceptual design and applying cost to that. So if we need to see where we need to build new facilities in the future, as it relates to growth of the city and growth of employees, we'll have a game plan and know how to do it.
Are there any projects left from our after action plans from winter storms the last few years? I know there is a decent amount of work over the last couple of years regarding generators, hardening of city facilities. That's what reminded me of it. But is there anything in particular to call out that we have left that you're aware of?
Not specifically. The last thing, one of the things we wanted to do when we converted this building, its generator from being diesel to being natural gas, because we wanted to have continual use. We accomplished that this year. We also are able to reuse the generator that we removed from this facility and put it on a trailer as a mobile generator. So one thing we're doing now, we have costs and everything lined out to do it. We just need to. I know it's in the process of getting all the financial stuff done, but to install basically plugs at facilities that don't have a generator, so we can mobilize that mobile generator to empower a facility if we need to. That was one of the things we wanted to make sure we did, and it took a little bit, but we got it done. Other things we wanted to do was we learned the cost to have brush ground up and hauled away.
Yeah.
And the prices obviously jumped after that event. So we moved from that, the grinding and hauling, which was a very expensive operation, to where we now can incinerate brush. So it's a one-time capital cost, and it's not an ongoing operational cost. So, and I believe we pretty much covered all the things that we wanted to do as a result of the after action report.
Okay, great, thank you.
Does that mean that potentially the limb pickup service would come back? Because didn't that go away at some point?
That's a bigger discussion that we had. I can't say yes or no because, this just kind of lists out some of the facility CIPs. So, City Hall, Public Works Complex that Brandon discussed earlier, ADA transition plan facility projects. That is, to explain that a little bit more, making sure that all city facilities are ADA compliant. I'm not saying that we aren't, but we have funding and we have an obligation to do that, obviously, and that's something we're doing.
I would imagine that may get trued up a little bit more pending the facilities master plan. Because just thinking about, we've got a lot of new facilities which would hopefully be compliant from the start, or would be required to, versus how many of our existing facilities we really need to retrofit in the next couple of years.
And kind of also to explain, so ADA transition plan and facilities condition assessment kind of go hand in hand, because we just completed a facility condition assessment as part of the facility master planning, because you have to know what you have in order to know what you need. But the facility condition assessment, what that is you go in, evaluate each facility, program the repairs into your maintenance operation, and if there are capital costs, you're able to have that information so you can budget every year. So the facility condition assessment also identifies where there's ADA issues or improvements that can be made. So you can use the facility condition assessment outcome to play into your ADA transition plan operation.
Got it.
So those go hand in
Okay.
hand.
So those two pieces are tied together, and then they'll get updated again when the overall plan comes
They
in.
function together, but project-wise, they're not tied technically.
Yeah, sure.
But one informs the other. Justice Center expansion, East Police Substation. So this goes back to making sure we have east-west mobility in our city. So if we have issues, but if it takes more time to get east-west for emergency services, we need to make sure that we have emergency services placed where they can help and, get to calls quicker.
Yeah, I won't put you on the spot, but I think that price came down from what y'all may have shared last year. Did I hear a whisper that it does not include the actual facility?
They better use an idea.
That would lower the cost. Okay.
This is just, again, pie chart showing you the source of funding.
Sorry, I think there's.
Sorry.
Quick question. If a one-pager for one of these items has a different amount for capital costs than funding source, does that mean that there's a need for an additional funding source to pay for the estimated total capital cost?
Could you tell me which one you're looking at?
I'm looking at the Downtown East City Hall and Multi-Generational Recreation Center.
What page?
Oh, sorry, page, 1 of 7 doesn't help. It's in, because they have it by subsections.
Oh,
It's in the facilities section.
Is that FA?
I don't know if there's other ones. I was just curious because I pinpointed like a handful of projects that I'm like personally interested in, and I just saw that.
We'll have to
Okay, yeah.
get back and look and then come back to you.
And if not too, I can follow up with city staff.
That's fine. I imagine that they were shown in prior year funding for Downtown East since we've been working on that for a couple years.
Okay. Thank you.
Pie chart showing you the funding sources. Facility project, East Police Substation, as we mentioned. So constructing the East Police Station, the training facilities, new facility to house training, patrol, police command, and detectives. So again, going to geographically serving the east side of the city. FY26 budget shows land acquisition costs, but not currently funded. Possible general obligation bond project. Again, this is a map showing these locations within context of the city. And all of a sudden, I'm finished. But I can answer any questions. I can answer any questions you might have.
I got one thing to add.
Sure.
You said one of my favorite words earlier in the roadways. You said roundabout. Big fan. Love those. It's well documented here on this committee that I have been a big supporter.
Asking for a train.
Yeah. Not yet. Later. I will tell you, about 3 weeks ago, I got to experience my first double roundabout. It was a roundabout to another roundabout. It was amazing. I'll show you where it was. I think it would really help at the intersection of 130 and whatever the crossing is that goes right in front of Stone Hill.
Okay.
You know where that has the big like Y off
Yep.
that goes down south, and then it's just a total nightmare. Double roundabout.
Okay.
I agree.
Every time I experience a cool new roundabout feature, I want to tell everybody about it.
You do bring it up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Roundabouts and trains.
I'll hand it over to Brandon.
So, good evening again, Commissioners. Brandon Pritchett, Utility Director for the city. I am not here to talk about roundabouts. If we did roundabout pipes, that gets a little weird. Pipe just goes in a circle. Yeah, well, I'm happy to work on roundabouts for water wastewater. Excuse me. So, our water CIP, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of our expansions are currently underway. So our goal is obviously we want to get the pipes in the ground before everybody else gets in the ground, because it gets a lot more expensive when you have to build when there's a lot of development around. It's a whole lot easier to build it before everybody's there. So with those expansions, again, you have increased drinking water treatment capacity, you have increased raw water supply, as well as transmission and conveyance across the entire city. We have a total of 13 water projects. They're all listed in this table here. So the majority of these in this table are all either under contract for design or about to go to construction, with the exception of a couple of tank rehabs one of them is about to kick off, but the big one that we wanted to make sure to highlight for this presentation is the 5 MGD SH45 pump station. So this is a very large I say very large, normally very large. With our $100 million of water, wastewater, it's not as large, but we'll talk about that in a second. So water program funding sources, we fund it through Texas Water Development Board, through WIFIA funding. We've gotten very innovative in how we fund our water and wastewater program. Which comes with it a lot of interest savings across the utility. While it may not be, readily apparent when you pay the water wastewater bill, it could be a whole lot worse if we weren't using TWDB and EPA WIFIA funding. So the big FY26 water project that we have, this is a new 5 million gallon per day pump station and a 1.25 million gallon ground storage tank. So this is along SH45. We bought the property last fiscal year. I think it was last fiscal year, the later part of the year. So we bought that property along SH45 with the intent that we know we have to build this pump station, and we have to build it before all of those high intensity developments start developing along SH45. So this will be able to serve those developments as well as be able to provide a redundant feed for the Finnick pump station that is down near Black Locust. So looking forward at what we're currently looking at for CIP projects, both in construction, you can see the yellow line that goes way off, but we also have a significant amount of, like I mentioned earlier, water rehab projects. We have a lot of conveyance projects that go along the corridors, as well as the conveyance along the SH45 corridor as well. And what you'll notice is a lot of these, there's nothing around them, right? That's the goal. We don't want to build these in the backyards of people's houses for 42-inch water lines. So for the FY26 wastewater CIP, again, as we mentioned about the Wilbarger wastewater treatment facility earlier, our intent is to be able to increase our treatment capacity and conveyance to serve both growth and development. So we want to be able to serve development through gravity wastewater as much as humanly possible. You'll see that in the reflection of the breadth of our wastewater CIP. And so we also want to make sure that we maintain existing city infrastructure. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 40-plus-year-old wastewater pipes in the ground. We want to make sure that we're maintaining those appropriately because they have literally been in the ground for 40 years and never been touched. We have minimal rehab work that we've done in-house. So there's an overall 21 wastewater projects. So the big ones that we'll mention on the next slide is the 24-inch Colorado Sand Interceptor and the 12-inch Club Wastewater Interceptor. So one of these is to decommission a current lift station, and the other one is to serve any new development within the Lakeside Meadows development, northwest of where their extents are. And I must also mention that there will be an edit to y'all's so there's one in here. Sorry for all the weird names, Upper New Sweden Interceptor. This is on the far east side of the city. So we currently have a development agreement with a municipal utility district on the east side of town, and they are constructing a portion of that interceptor. But we know that in the future we have to convey that their line will end at a private lift station. We want to convey gravity all the way south to the future New Sweden lift station or New Sweden wastewater treatment facility. Far into the future. But in order to do that, we want to get ahead of preliminary engineering. We want to find our alignment before everybody builds all their stuff. While it's still farmland, it's a whole lot easier to get an alignment and easement started than it is when everybody starts building up there. So we will have a correction on that to add preliminary engineering design to be able to find that alignment and make sure we can get out of the gate early before everybody starts building. Wastewater program funding sources, as we mentioned on the water side, a significant amount of funding with both the WIFIA funding, with our master services agreement, as well as with the Texas Water Development Board for the Wilbarger project. So we sing the praises of TWDB and WIFIA everywhere we go. So, but if y'all want to talk about it, it's a long conversation, and I can keep y'all here all night and bore you to death. What's that? Fine. Finance.
I just said public finance.
Public finance.
Oh.
It's the greatest ever. It's so great. It keeps everybody awake at night and keeps us enthralled. It is interesting when you're in this field, but it can be very dry. So again, as mentioned, our FY26 wastewater projects, we have the Colorado Sand Interceptor, which is that purple line on the left side. The Lakeside Meadows development is constructing a large portion of that, and we have an oversized agreement with them to oversize a portion, but we'll also want to extend that up further and be able to start working on extending that up and north and to the west towards Pflugerville Parkway, closer to where that HEB is, the new HEB is. And the Club Wastewater Interceptor. So the Club Wastewater Lift Station is on South Heather Wild Boulevard, next to a brand new apartment complex, right on the edge of our wastewater CCN. This is a lift station that we prefer not to have because it's right on the edge of the CCN, but this project is to be able to gravity feed that out and decommission that lift station. So for a graphical overview, or a map overview, I guess. So our wastewater CCN, if y'all weren't all aware already, it is massive and it goes very far to the east, all the way up to 973 and New Sweden Church Road. So the downside of having a CCN in the short term is you have the requirement to serve. So you can see our large infrastructure projects that go all the way east. So you'll see, though, that in our CIP, or in the next 5 years, we want to make sure that we get ahead of it as best we can. So what we're dealing with what you see with WW2201, which is the Kelly Lane Interceptor, that is a project that is fraught with problems, with the fact that we have to cut through a golf course, we have to go through a neighborhood. It's very, very challenging. So what you'll see us really starting to harp on and really invest in is to be able to get to the projects like the WW2501, to get out ahead of it, so that way we're not tunneling in people's backyards, to be able to get wastewater service to them outside of the lift station. And Reclaim Water CIP. So the Reclaim Water CIP, we touched on it earlier with the single project that we have. There is currently 2 projects, one currently under design and one of them that's going to go out for contract next year. So the intent with these projects is to be able to start serving along the commercial and eastern edge of our eastern water CCN. So we're serving our water customers with Reclaim Water, or the ability to. So whether that's everything along the Cameron Lane that's transferred over to our water CCN, or whether that's the future line will go up Weiss Lane. So if you think of high school, you think of all of the commercial entities that are coming in along there, whether it's multifamily or not, we want them to be able to irrigate with all purple pipe. So this is what that second project, that blue line, is to be able to extend that line further north all the way up Weiss Lane. And an interesting thing about Reclaim Water and Purple Pipe is the Bureau of Reclamation likes to give away free money, and California keeps getting it. And we are going to keep sending in those applications for free money through the Bureau of Rec, because they are really heavily invested in reclaimed water strategies, whether it's Purple Pipe, whether it's direct potable reuse or indirect potable reuse. So right now we're funding the project through utility fund reserves, but the intent is to continue to really push for those Bureau of Rec grants that are, there's a match, but they give a lot of money for projects that can significantly help funding. So again, as mentioned, the reclaimed water line that goes along Weiss Lane, that extends in that light blue line that you kind of can probably see on the east side of Lake Pflugerville. That line will extend all the way along Weiss Lane from Pleasanton all the way north until it gets to Sorrento, and then serve that. It's kind of I wouldn't say vacant, but it's kind of floodplain over there, just where our Weiss Lane lift station is. And with that, it goes over to Parks, but I'm happy to answer any wastewater questions that y'all may have for the 5-year CIP.
I just want to briefly thank you for all of the hard work. I think one of the most important things that not just your department, but the other folks across city staff is looking at these alternative funding sources. It's a huge savings for our residents, and I think the other piece, as you look at these projects, both on water and wastewater, especially looking at where Pflugerville is going to be. Right, we have almost an entire second Pflugerville in terms of population coming our way over the coming years, right? And I think that it's really important that we don't get behind or further behind on a lot of these projects, with an eye toward, to the point that you made earlier, not value engineering our way into a bunch of maintenance costs later on, and digging even more tunnels. And so I appreciate, what I would say is more of fiscal sustainability, right? We're putting the right amount of money into some of these projects, as opposed to over-engineering and going crazy and getting everything we wanted, which of course we're not getting, but also not undercutting ourselves and deferring those bills for later on when it's certainly not going to be any less expensive than it is now. So really appreciate the work that y'all are doing to think critically about these projects.
Appreciate it.
Third.
But if no water, wastewater questions, I'm going to turn it over to the.
I mean, we can nitpick the purple pipe pathing if you want, real quick.
I could talk water, wastewater all night, and no one would be more happy to do it.
I'm having a specific residential issue at one particular address. I'd like to talk to you about that.
I'll be here. I will be here to talk about it.
Can I ask about buying out my for-profit water company's water rights in the city limits as well? Should I too soon to bring that up again?
So, like, if I were to send him potential foundation, I mean, granted, a foundation is a drop in the bucket. Haha, see what I did there? That wouldn't be subject to open records, would it? Just if I sent foundation recommendations for funding opportunities to city staff, that's fine, right?
You can, yes.
Okay.
You can send that to me.
Okay, cool. I'll send it to you, and then you can.
And then
yeah.
I'll share. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, foundations are not usually the size, but I can think of a couple.
Okay.
I was only a little bit joking about the public finance piece.
We're not picky at all. I will take $5. I'm not picky.
No, don't say that. It is not worth the administrative lift.
But
Just
again,
a very real human cost to that. Yes.
I have slapped people for some small things they've had.
I will turn it on over to Jeff and the Parks team because, again, Parks is more fun than water, wastewater.
Yeah, more fun and a lot shorter too. So, okay, so we'll talk about some parks. Again, I'm Jeff Shea, Assistant Parks and Recreation Director. We've got 17 park projects here, so we'll get right into that. The highlighted are the three we're going to talk about today because those kick off in FY26. I do want to highlight though, and like a lot of these 5-year CIPs, you'll see kind of a drop off towards the end of the 5-year plan. For us, a big part of that is a lot of plans are being concluded right now or are about to start. And so a lot of our future funding, future projects will come from those plans. So we've got our trail corridor study that we'll talk about here shortly, our Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan update in 2 years. So we'll have a lot of projects. The Master Mobility Plan may drive some trail gaps and things like that we're going to be looking at for trail connectivity. So we'll have a lot of projects towards the end of that don't exist quite yet. Did want to make sure I highlight that. Looking at funding sources, and it's not on here, but since we are kind of talking about alternative funding, for the park side, Texas Parks and Wildlife has local park grants that are available that we've discussed for future projects applying for. That funding comes from the feds. It comes from Land and Water Conservation Fund, but it also comes from revenues from the sporting goods sales tax here in Texas, and it's not a huge amount of money that's available, but there is money available for some of these smaller projects to be able to get funding from the state and from the feds. So the three projects we'll talk about today are Lake Pflugerville Park Phase 2B, which is a boardwalk and nature center. So this is at the northwest corner of Lake Pflugerville Park. Kind of taking into account some of as much natural area as you can in a man-made lake in Texas, but a boardwalk that crosses the water there, and then this is a Bealey House property, so a future part of this project is that there'll be a nature center there, but this Phase 2B includes community gardens and some of the other nature infrastructure on that side of the park. It also, more on Lake Pflugerville, includes the Lake Pflugerville Silent Harbor Trailhead. So this is on the western side along Silent Harbor Loop. And in addition to just being an additional entrance into the trail from this portion, it also will provide additional restrooms, additional parking to get people away from north and south side of those parking lots, especially with the expansion of Lake Pflugerville Parkway. We'll lose a little bit of parking there, so this will become incredibly important. And then our third project is a trail corridor study, which will be really impactful for us. This is essentially looking at our trail connection from Bowles Park around Windermere, going up Gillen Creek. We're pretty unique in the amount of trails that we've got per capita here in Pflugerville. As evidenced, we're going to the Capitol tomorrow to talk on the Trail Capital of Texas designation down at the legislature. And so the Trail Corridor study will highlight kind of the uniqueness of that on one of the more popular portions of this trail system here in Pflugerville, and also one that's growing with downtown east and everything that's coming in around there. So that Trail Corridor study will look at programmatically what that area of the trail looks like. We'll kind of take into account improvements to the connectivity that need to happen, but also, again, parks, playgrounds, things along the way to improve that part of the trail that, again, is incredibly popular for our community. And here you see lined out a lot of those projects in our 5-year plan. And Abby said she would buy my lunch this week sometime if I read this slide, I believe.
Can we pause real quick to talk about parks for a second?
Go ahead.
I would imagine I'm probably not the only one with comments and questions on that.
Sorry, I was going too fast.
One of the things that I've been thinking about lately that I think would be fantastic to start to consider within the trails plan, especially if you're looking at the corridor study, is thinking about our trails as part of our overall mobility network in town. I was at a strategy session facilitated by some of your all's consultants a couple weeks ago, and it came up, and I really heard a lot of excitement from folks thinking about the services that are available across our trails and thinking about it in terms of how am I actually getting to places where I'm not able to today. And so I think that speaks to part of the plan that you were just bringing up, which is there's still gaps as well. But I think putting that lens on our amazing trail system beyond just I enjoy my morning walks, but also I'm much easier to get around my part of town and get to services that I may need to without a vehicle, I think would be a really great way to consider some of our future investment there.
Yeah, and that's been a huge part of the master mobility plan process as it incorporates the Trails Master Plan this time. So it is looking at things holistically.
Gotcha.
And a huge part of that conversation has been, yes, our trails are used for that morning walk, for exercise. How often are they used for actually connecting to retail, schools, other things? And yeah, some of this future funding for us will be not only trail gaps, but making sure that those connections to vital parts of the city are there for people.
Yeah.
And that plan, Chair, will come before the Planning and Zoning Commission for a recommendation to council in the next couple of months.
Great. Awesome. Look forward to it. There was, oh man, am I going to lose it? There was one other thing I wanted to bring up.
While you're thinking of that leads me into my most favorite topic, trains.
I said it.
So thank you.
I said it.
You guys do an incredible job, and I think one of the things that's really stood out, especially in your plans and your projects and things, I was mentioning this earlier, is that the Central Park, specifically in my neighborhood in Falcon Point, y'all just recently redid that, and I mean it's a stunning improvement. I mean, just absolutely, it's a bigger structure, it's a better facility. I think living in the neighborhood and going to that with my kids, the thing that stands out is the nature escape. Right, so I think y'all took a concrete slide in a hill, and so kids can run up and down the hill instead of maybe going up a stair or a ramp or whatever, and then they slide down that, and then there's a whole bunch of I'm gonna guess they're prefabs or manufactured boulders, that kind of make a boulder bridge. Every time I go by that particular park, which is regularly daily, those two elements are the most popular thing right next to a brand new gigantic play structure, right? And so I think that that really just tells you all you need to know about what kids are interested in and where they can find creativity in their imagining and making connections with stuff. So I think that's really great. So keep up that stuff. Add more rocks. Rocks aren't hard to come by around here. So just get big ones that people can't move. And then on the mobility thing, I do think that Pflugerville, the way that our community is laid out, it really does lend itself to taking bold steps in our approach, especially as we're growing. Like it's been pretty amazing to be involved the last 4 years to see some of the major bold steps and design plans and improvements and kind of big vision sharing, and specifically the rec center is an absolute icon of that experience. But I think that if y'all are going for trail capital of Texas, which you should, that would be an identity marker or a place marker, and you know, if you include into something like that a people moving option, you know, not necessarily a train with rail, but you know, maybe a propane gas powered wheeled vehicle or something, that is a draw that brings people to the parks or to the trails to have an experience on their way elsewhere. I think anything you can do along those lines, including you know, your bike stations, those are great. Lots of positive feedback on that. Water stations, benches with seating, and you know, nature lookouts and things like that. Those are all things that you know, my family would utilize, just because you know, it gives me an excuse to take my kids, and then they're entertained while I'm also looking at the birds.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you. Keep it up.
And I did think of the other point. So I'll bring that up now too. It's very tactical, but I remember bringing this up last year as well. I love that we are building in our continued trail connectivity just as a standard line item. However, I still really believe that needs to escalate in cost over time, because those dollars are going to go less and less far as time goes on. And I think if we are the trail capital, which we are, and we're going to continue to keep that designation, then we need to reflect that investment in a smart way in our forward-facing plans.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we will, like I said, with the implementation of the Master Mobility Plan, the trails portion of that, we'll have specific projects, I think, that end up getting called out because of the size and scale of particular projects we have to do, that they'll probably be called out in the CIP as well.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. That wasn't too bad. So the schedule of CIP adoption. So obviously tonight the draft CIP has been presented to P&Z, and then requesting formal approval in your May meeting on May 5th. CIP presentation to City Council will be on May 13th, and then formal adoption via the FY26 budget adoption by City Council scheduled for September 23rd.
And we would ask for your attendance at that May 13th meeting as part of your joint meeting with City Council and your charter requirement to present the CIP recommendation to them at that time.
Great.
I'll take a steak.
If I have any general questions, is this where I can ask them?
Yeah.
So I was wondering, is there any location where we can see like funding progress complete by funding source? Like, for example, you know, there's a certain bond that was passed in 2020 or 2021. I know that there's like a pie chart by category and also overall a funding source. But for example, if there's certain projects that are taking a little bit, you know, longer to complete, we can kind of see where we at with completing out a specific funding source, like a bond that's a little bit older, and then can tie it back to looking at specific pages to look at specific projects. I just don't know if that's something that's already created, or I don't even know if we're allowed to see an Excel file of like some of the tables.
Yeah. We'll take note of that and then get back to you at the next meeting.
Yeah. And when we're looking at something like this, are we, you know, allowed to follow up and request, you know, like backup documents like Excel files to, or is it really kind of looking at the PDF and reviewing the PDF as it stands?
It's the PDF document.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. Thank you.
I had just a couple of comments operationally on this stuff. I think I really appreciate that I didn't have to ask for extra justification on these projects, and they were all already tied to our strategic pillars of the city. I think I've mentioned doing that every year that I've been on here, and I didn't have to ask, and it's looking great. So I really appreciate you all really tightening up the why, which is super important for these projects and for the scale of investment that we're looking to make. I think one of the other things that we can do a better job at communicating is how these impact our impact fees, which are certainly pretty critical to ensuring that we continue to see healthy investment and development in the city while also taking the burden off of our ratepayers. So that I'm sure you all can come up with something creative to help craft that story. And then very similarly, I think on the summary of the departments, I think calling out on the prioritized list which ones of those are using these alternative and or innovative funding sources would be great, so that there's kind of, to your point, a little bit of a consolidated list of, hey, 30% of our projects or whatever, right, are grant funded, another 25% of them are, reduced interest rates because we're doing it through the Texas Water Development Board, et cetera. I think that's really important to tell the story of just how much money we are saving residents of the city. So those were kind of my tactical things. And then in general, I know this is a huge amount of effort across a ton of different departments, and really appreciate all of the hard work that you all put into in bringing forth really impactful projects. And having seen this for a few years in a row now, I feel really good about, the direction that you all are taking in the proposals and the level of detail, and really appreciate all of the hard work. So thank you all for all of the staff that's been involved in this.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. And I also noticed y'all took our request for clarification and layout and summary at the beginning into consideration in this draft, and it's great. To y'all's points about the different funding associated with a project, I do want to ask Emily or anyone else who can speak to it, if y'all do that, what constraints does that then put on you rebudgeting later? Because I know sometimes you'll have a funding source that could go to project X, Y, or Z, but once you publicly link the two, then you have to publicly unlink them if something goes different, and you want to maintain flexibility for that. I don't know if that would be an issue or not for y'all.
Looking at our finance director.
Because I would hate to back y'all into a corner on how you use your dollars. I would want to defer to the expertise of your finance director to make the best use.
I mean, one of the things about trying to lay out the funding with these projects is you can see we're identifying what we have and what we know, and then we're saying this is what we don't know. So even though it says future debt, and they talk about applying for grants, so before we step out to issue those future debts, because we're trying to issue strategically so that we're issuing as we need the funds. So, annual issuances makes more sense so that we're not issuing out, 5 years worth of projects. And so every time we go to establish that project list for that bond issuance, we're going to make sure that we're not issuing funds for a project that has grant funding or could possibly have grant funding. We do have some flexibility, or we build in flexibility, especially if we're doing a certificate of obligation, that we keep our words in our bond document flexible, so that if we do end up getting grant funding for a project, we can pivot and shift that funding to another transportation project. I mean, we have to keep it within the bucket, but we may not necessarily have to keep it within the project. So those are the things that we go through as we try to fund this.
And especially when you
plan.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're fine.
I don't, again, I haven't worked in city government, but I do know that when you have things like capital projects where there's you have your milestones and you have your timeline, and then the world happens and your supplier for your pipe is in Ukraine. And so now your project is delayed. Sometimes the funding gets shifted. So this project is going to finish up and this money is going to expire, and we're waiting on pipes from Ukraine. So let's take this money over here before it expires. So I just wanted to call out, there's a limit to how much detail we could have, probably realistically, on funding by project.
And we do make those decisions so that we can spend the oldest funds first.
Exactly, yeah.
Anything else?
I have one question, and I don't know if this is for the whole group or you can just tell me later. So, the CIP is intended for general public reading, correct? Okay. So my question is on the, we all know that everybody is, learns by images and things. So on the summary, like project funding, and feel free to stop me anytime you want, but the paragraphs here that talk about drainage and facilities and parks, I feel like those are really great impact statements but they'll also have specific detail in there that are acknowledged in graphic form later. But if a citizen was interested or curious, without going through the whole thing, is it possible to get some of the highlights, like in page, whatever this is, CIP, like this very one here, to put some of those same charts without doing extra work other than just formation and layout, to get that in there so somebody can read through it and go, oh, I see the city's really focused on $883 million for 45 projects, transportation master plan. Is there a way to make that a nice little...
Or could they say see page blah-de-do-blah?
Or they could do that.
Some cross-reference
Yeah.
to the images.
That's the only thing, because I imagine if... So I talk a lot about what the city does to my friends, which might surprise everybody. But I tell
No.
I tell them we're doing $2 billion worth of public infrastructure projects. I would love to be able to send them like 6 pages and go, here, reference the other 139 pages that are worth reading.
If I had a nickel for every time I've told my friends about the wastewater project,
Yeah.
right? Like,
You'd work for the wastewater department.
I mean, if I had the skill set.
Anyway, that's it. Otherwise, wonderful stuff. Great. Thank you. Y'all are amazing, as always.
Anything else?
Great.
All right. Well, we will adjourn at 8:55. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.